If you clicked on this video by some twist of fate, I want to personally welcome you to the Bad Idea Games channel. We are reviewing the best Wolverine game ever made. Now, not to discredit the creators at Insomniac who are working on the new Wolverine game, but I don't think we're going to see anything like this ever again. Not only was this a movie tie-in game, which we don't see that anymore whatsoever, but this was an extremely violent and pretty well done one at the, to say the least. And I think that's something that we won't really see again in modern times is games that were violent for the sake of it. That was like a whole thing, especially when it comes to license. When you think of things like the Punisher game, you think about Manhunt, they emphasize certain aspects of humanity that really don't get, not that they deserve love or anything or deserve recognition or should be implemented in society, but this was art. These were artistic endeavors. Not to keep glorifying the violence, but I think it's interesting. There's something to be said about how violent games used to be and where they are now. I'd say games have become a lot more docile, and I think that's because of things like content creators and streaming. I tried to play this game on stream and I kept getting flagged for violence, so things like this just can't be done in the modern era. There's a lot of things that are to be said. I think maybe I should start off with the positive before we get to the negative. For one, this is a fun game. No matter what, this game is fun. Whenever you're playing it, it's great. Like whenever you're playing Wolverine and you just put yourself in that mindset, there's nothing better than it. They got the real actors. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. They got Liev Schreiber to play Sabretooth. They even got Will.i.am to reprise his role as whatever the character is. I can't tell you, and I'm not going to be bothered to Google it. And it's definitely a product of its time. It came out around 2009, and you can see it and feel it. And it's a shame that this is stuck on the generation of consoles that it is. But man, it feels good to play some of those old games sometimes. They didn't really care too much of the CGI and the graphics and the storyline and if it's friendly and battle passes and blah blah blah. Like no, they just made fun games, period. Now moving on to some of the things I didn't like. I'm not a big fan of the puzzles. I hate puzzles. Maybe it's just my brain doesn't work that way. But whenever there was a moment to stop and reflect, or like there was not a time where you're Wolverine and you're solving these puzzles, I really was not having a good time. Especially the turret section. I feel like anybody who played this game and you're in that facility and you had to get through those turrets, you're gonna die a few times. The story is pretty much non-existent, but that could be blamed on the fact that it's a movie tie-in game. The X-Men Origins Wolverine movie is not a great one or even a good one by any means, so to expect any different from the video game tie-in, yeah, I didn't expect much. A few repetitive and annoying bosses. You'll fight the same rock monster like 4 or 5 times, and at some point towards the end, they'll just have 5 or 6 of them coming at you at once. It's insane. Definitely a lot of repetitive and kind of annoying enemies. But you get more powerful over time, and it feels good. Like once you get to the end, you really do feel like you're the ultimate badass and nobody can stop you. Games like this will never exist again because of content creators. Because of streamers, YouTube, and TikTok, games can't be as over the top with the violence and like they used to. Just look at the God of War original trilogy. Those games were everything your parents didn't want you to play in one package. Now let's look at the 2018 God of War. We have this stoic, docile, almost neutered Kratos. So when people in the comments say, "Oh, the new Wolverine game will be M-rated," well, let me just tell you, in 2024, M-rated is basically E10. In 2024, Shadow the Hedgehog would have been the most M-rated game ever. Because nowadays, M-rated doesn't mean blood and gore and all these other things. M-rated just means corny jokes with cuss words, a la, or for a great example, Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 had a lot of over-the-top language and references, but as far as gore and other things that would be considered M-rated, no, never gonna happen again. Anyways, I don't want this to become a debate on the ESRB. Let's go back to playing the game. So I also wanted to give a little bit of backstory onto this game. So this game was developed by Raven Software and published by Activision. Now, if you don't know, Activision used to make a lot of great games, especially Marvel games. Now, the license has expired, so we'll definitely never see that again. But I'm definitely grateful to be alive during this era to experience such a great, like, collaboration. Activision was actually taking risks. They had their hand on a lot of things, and I don't want to just make this about the developers, but let's just take a moment to realize Activision made Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Tony Hawk Pro Skater or an Underground series. I mean, they were putting out bangers back then. Anyways, like we all know, this is a movie tie-in game, and it was published around 2009, so it came out right in that prime Xbox 360 era that we all loved. And this was really the first time we got a version of Wolverine that really got to go crazy. This version of Wolverine got to go all in with everything. He actually got to use his claws and cause some damage. You know what I mean? We will never see something like this again. I don't know what the new Wolverine has in store for us, but I know it's not going to be something like this. I can almost guarantee you that. Yeah, and this game was, we had a lot of great hack and slash games. The button, it's not too complicated to play this game. You're not going to play this game and be confused on what to do or where to go. This is just one of those great 9 to 10 hour experiences that we all loved back then. You would play a game for like 3 days maybe, you know what I mean? Do some extras, get some costumes, get some achievements. You trade it in and grab the next one. Now, I know it's not the best business model to have a game that people are going to trade in for the next one, but I would say I prefer that to making one game and then milking it for years. Something like The Sims 4. The Sims 4 has been in development or has been played for 10 years. And it doesn't seem like we have Sims 5 in sight. So this business model, in my opinion, was more preferable. You got a great story, you got a pretty good game, and you kept it moving. And they would move on to the next one. They wouldn't focus on updates and all this other stuff. They would just make a great game, and you would play it and enjoy it, and you would love it. And that was it. That's all that mattered. Nowadays, I'm not trying to be some boomer retro gamer that's always talking about we had it better back in our days. But this particular game, these particular times, I'd say we had the renaissance of gaming. We're in the perfect era where gaming was still new and there were still innovations to be made. You know what I'm saying? Like now, there's not too many innovations. There's only monetization. Now, I am recording this footage on an original PS3. I'm not able to emulate at this time, especially something like a PS3 or Xbox 360 game. My PC is just not capable. So I'm playing this on original hardware, on a PS3, exactly how it's intended. And I will say, I'm pretty impressed. Are we getting the best frame rates? No. Are we getting the best resolution? No, but this game came out, years ago, over 10 years ago. And it holds up to this day, as you can see. It's not much. You're not looking at the most innovative experience of your life. This is not going to change you forever. But back then, we just had purely fun games, Somebody would make something like God of War, and people would realize, hey, that's a pretty good formula. We can add this onto other things, and people will probably like it. And we can, make things that are unique to the character. And it did. This game made you feel like Wolverine. And I know it's such a corny thing to say. Feels like Spider-Man, feels like Batman. But no, this was the only game where I've ever felt like Wolverine. And I hope the new one can do it. I hope the new one can do it. But if you see here, like, you're just shredding people, tossing them left and right. You are the ultimate weapon, and there's nothing that can stop you. And it really makes you feel that way. How could you complain about something like this? Now, I know it would be great to have this on modern consoles, you know what I mean? And I'm always an advocate for making games available to be able to, have on your modern consoles or for the newer generation to experience and enjoy. But I highly doubt a remaster will ever be made of anything like this. For one, like I said, the violence is too over the top. Streamers can't play it. I'm genuinely surprised that something like Lollipop Chainsaw is getting a remake, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah, as far as this, this is stuck on its hardware. This is stuck on a PS3 and an Xbox 360. And not only that, this is delisted. Okay, the Xbox 360 store is done. The PlayStation store is done. You cannot actually buy this game unless you have a physical copy. Luckily, I bought my physical copy years ago during the pandemic, so I got my copy for about $20. But if you look on eBay or online sources, third-party sources, this game, complete with the manual and the disc, a clean disc and everything, will run you $100, $120. Now I know the Deadpool Wolverine movie just came out, so the hype is insane right now, but I don't see it going down in price because people realize even if you did pay that price for it, you pop it in, you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna talk about it. You're gonna long for those times that we had, those moments we had when we were younger and we just didn't have responsibilities, and you just enjoy something like this. Now, I'm not saying I don't enjoy modern games and responsibility is what's killing blah blah blah. Like, no. My point is that games were just games. There wasn't so many caveats. Like, now a game needs to be streamable. Now the game needs to review well. Now the game needs to I'm saying these are all great things. I love streaming. I love accessibility. I think accessibility is one of the greatest things of modern gaming. This fact that anybody can play these days. There's no restrictions. But when you focus on all these external factors, your battle passes, your DLC, your weekly updates, when you're focusing on this and that, the marketing, when are you developing a great game? Now, I'm not saying this is the best game ever, and I will never say that. This game is a solid 7 out of 10. It's exactly what you wanted. It's Wolverine. He's an ultimate badass, and you get to live out your fantasies. That's all you could ever ask for. And maybe I'm going back and forth in my points. This is my first ever review, so I'm just really going off the top of my head. I don't have a script in front of me. I'm just going off my own memories and my own thoughts and my own feelings. Now, the only things, like I said, I really didn't like is I didn't like the repetitive puzzles. I didn't like the repetitive boss fights. The story is pretty much ignorable. But everything else, positive across the board. The feedback is amazing. When you play this game and you hear the sounds and you feel how everything is so responsive, it's amazing. Like, you can start pulling off crazy combos. You start upgrading your abilities, and you're just unstoppable. Nobody can touch you, and it's one of the best feelings. Old games like Infamous, Prototype, they were so great at giving you these powers gradually. You would start these games kind of weak, you were susceptible to things like bullets, and they would cause you harm, but something like this it had no qualms about giving you ultimate power. This and Hulk Ultimate Destruction, Prototype, they would just give you ultimate power, and of course still let you upgrade. Now, I'm recording this footage on a PS3, so I'm sorry for the graininess and a lot of the non-optimization here, but like I said, it's my first review, my first video, so I'm trying to iron out the kinks. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you guys, man. I love retro games. I collect video games. I'm a big advocate for physical media and keeping these things alive. I think the only way to build upon the future is to understand our past, and part of that is people like me, people who, not to claim that I'm the only one, but people who are making these videos, people who are talking about it on TikTok, because the younger generation will have no way of knowing. And the same thing can be said for myself. I didn't know about a lot of old school games until I started watching the AVGN series. I've never played a NES. I've never played a PlayStation 1. To be honest with you, I've never played a PlayStation 1, Sega Genesis, or a Nintendo 64, like the actual console. Like, now, I've played a lot of the games, of course. I've played PS1 games, Nintendo 64 games, but I've never actually held my hands on that console and on that controller, to be honest with you. That was just a little bit before my generation. I only know about it because of content creators. And when I first saw AVGN all those years ago, I went out and I bought an NES. I went out and I bought an NES, and I bought Mega Man 2, and I bought Mario 3, and I fell in love with retro gaming before my time, and I'm hoping that the younger audience will see this. And hey, Xbox 360s aren't too expensive. You can get an Xbox 360 or PS3, and you can have a great time. During around 2020, I invested heavily in retro games. I bought a PSP, I bought a Xbox 360, and I got a bundle deal on eBay. Wasn't that much money, and I've been having such a blast. I mean, I turn on my PS5, my Xbox Series X, and I just scroll. I scroll it like I'm scrolling Instagram or I'm scrolling TikTok, and I never actually play the game. I'll turn it off. I'll look at the store. I'll see what's new. I'll see what looks good. I'll look at my library of games, but I never actually play something. And there's something to be said about that. I'm making this about retro games, maybe not like a review of Wolverine. I'm sorry, I'll just keep going on these tangents. Anyways, yeah, there's really not much to say about the gameplay as far as mechanics wise. It's a hack and slash. You have a lot of different abilities. You have different moves, different powers and upgrades. You have this great lunge feature. I hope that's implemented in the new Wolverine game. I love the lunge feature. Just being able to spot your enemies and just boom, get them just like that is the best feeling in the world. That's something that sticks with me. It's like muscle memory. When I first loaded up this game, I didn't have to look up the controls. This was all muscle memory, and it feels great. I would love to see something like this, this was like a Devil May Cry mixed with Wolverine, and I'm sure that's probably how they pitched it, and it's worked. It worked. Back then, there was a lot of ways you could just combine two things, and it would be great. It's like with Jak 2. They were like, hey, let's take Jak and let's make it like GTA. Let's make it open world. And Jak 2 is one of the best games I ever played in my life. There's something to be said about trying. This had so many things going wrong for it. This was a movie tie-in game attached to a horrible movie that nobody liked. This was a licensed franchise, which is always a risk, especially something like Marvel. They'd never seen something like this. I mean, like, the only thing that could be compared to it would be the Punisher game. The Punisher game had a lot of violence and things like that, and I got censored heavily even in the US. There's something to be said about trying really hard and getting it right. Getting it done right, making a quality product even with everything against you. And I'm pretty sure Raven Studios was shut down shortly after making this game, which is really sad. I mean, they seemed like they had a good run here. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the other games that Raven made, but there was a few that I really enjoyed. Actually, you know what? I'm remembering it now. They actually made the Singularity game, and that one got them shut down. But Raven had a lot of potential as developers. I think there was a lot of great developers back then. EA, Pandemic, like all these studios were taking risks where nobody else really was. And sometimes it paid off. Sometimes you get something like this and it would really pay off, and it was great. One thing that I love about this game is, maybe Hugh Jackman obviously was kind of tired of playing Wolverine even back then, and so some of his voice acting wasn't the best, and I can't blame him. It's just a video game. But it's nice to see our boy out here back. You know what I mean? Like, it's really nice to see Wolverine, the original Hugh Jackman, doing his thing. Because you know damn well that the new Wolverine game is not gonna have Hugh Jackman. They're gonna have some Wolverine lookalike guy and some random voice actor. It's not gonna be the authentic experience that this is right here. No matter what, this is the authentic Wolverine experience, and that's why, in my opinion, this is the best Wolverine game that will be ever made, because it is the most authentic as far as references, as far as characters, as far as actors. It is the most authentic Wolverine game that we will ever get. I definitely apologize for my rambling, but I'm definitely passionate about retro games. Thank you for watching. If you watch this far, this is my first review. I have so many more planned. I have so many games I want to play, and I appreciate you going on this journey with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all the things the algorithm likes. I appreciate it. See you on the next one.